All right, guys, welcome to tonight's lesson where we're going to be delving into active and passive voice, which is just going to help us on our, you know, seemingly unending quest to become the best writers we possibly can. So make sure you take diligent notes, um, and let's get started. Verbs and voice. Voice is the form a verb takes to indicate whether the verb performs or receives an action. There are two types of voice, active and passive. Active voice is used to show that the subject of the sentence is performing or causing the action. So some examples would be Mr. S flew to the grocery store because not only is Mr. S capable of incredible feats that defy modern day physics, he's also the subject of this sentence, whereas the verb to fly is represented by flew to the grocery store. So Mr. S is flying to the grocery store, represents an active sentence. Another example would be Taryn shot the soccer ball across the field. Liam ate 3 pieces of chocolate cake, which is just an impressive display of an insatiable sweet tooth. Passive voice is used when the subject is the recipient of the action. So now the sentence kind of flips, where the subject is at the end of the sentence. So Mr. S is at the end of the first example, where the presentation was made by Mr. S. So the focus tends to be on the presentation or the noun, then the action, then the subject. So this presentation was made by Mr. S. Another example would be the soccer ball was shot by Taryn, or the cake was eaten by Liam. Some of you might be asking, why does this even matter? This is stupid. I don't know anything. I don't want to know anything about this. I'm just going to tweet about it later. Because strong writing uses active voice. Deal and deal. Done and done. Point blank. Active voice is more direct and concise, while passive voice is usually wordier and just a lot more dense and unclear. There are some instances where passive voice might be best utilized. I'm not recommending them, but I just want to make sure you guys are aware that there are ways of using passive voice constructively. Um, one instance would be when intentionally trying to hide the subject of the sentence. So a politician might say, for example, the mistake was made internally. This sentence hides the subject of the blame. So the mistake was made internally. There is another example where it might be better to emphasize the main point of a message. This is really common in the news, where a news anchor might say, children were harmed by the reckless driver. These are two decent examples of why passive voice might be utilized. Again, for our purposes, I'd really rather prefer using active voice. This is just a demonstration of when passive voice could be used. Forms of passive voice verbs. The passive voice requires a double verb and will always consist of a form of the verb to be and the past participle of another verb. So some examples of this. Taryn was picked up from school by her mom. Here, the verb was, or the word was, represents the verb to be, that additional verb that we were talking about in the previous slide. Taryn was picked up from school by her mom. Actively, Taryn's mom picked her up from school. See how there is an additional word represented by the verb to be, further was? That's kind of an indication that the passive voice is being used. So keep an eye out for that when you're looking at other examples. More examples. Actively, Wyatt dug the tunnels. The passive version of the sentence would be the tunnels were dug by Wyatt. Again, Liam fixed the car because not only does he have a sweet tooth, he's also pretty handy with automotives. Passively, the car was fixed by Liam. Alright, so let's get some practice in. I want you guys to grab a pen and some lined paper, number your sheet 1 through 10, and identify if the sentence presented is written in the passive or active voice. Make sure to bring in this sheet with you to class tomorrow because I will be collecting it. Alright, so take your time, look at these questions, pause the video here. All you really need to do is just number 1 through 10, and then immediately to the right of it, state if the sentence is active or passive. Keep an eye out for some of the tools that we've learned, and bring in any questions you have tomorrow in class. Good luck, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.